Okay guys, Wereman here, welcome back to the workshop. Today I want to run through the C-bill formation scenario. So for those of you that haven't watched the others, I'm going to get Adam into a C-bill build. So our forces are going to be built with C-bills rather than with BV, and we're going to be building to a formation template. So you have to have a valid formation. Last year I went through all of the different types of formations and how they work, what they give you from the Kickstarter box set rulebook. Now, at some point I might go through the campaign ops versions of those because there's some really good optional ones in there that kind of expand it out a little bit, but I want to go through the C-bill formation build first. So I've got this, I'm sending it to Pillar as just like a text file, and hopefully she can get it into a PDF and find some way to either bring it up on the screen or I don't know, maybe have it available for you guys to download so you can read along or have a look at it, give it a try if you want to. This is part of what takes me so long, is I'm trying to get them actually as a coherent thing, and yeah, it's not always my strong suit. But we have, as you can see there, the situation there and the setup. Now, I won't bother with the situation, it's just a basic idea of what's going on. The setup I want to pay attention to, because in this particular scenario, I am giving the defender full control of the map. How many map boards are there, what they are, how they're set up, what orientation everything has, what size the buildings are, everything, right? Everything happens the way the defender wants it to happen. So what I'm trying to do is give you an attacker and defender that are actually kind of valid in a situation, right? Normally you won't know what forces are coming, right? You won't know what forces are coming. The clans are the only ones stupid enough to tell people what they're bringing, right? It's like, you can have pride in your equipment, you can have pride in your work, but don't tell them what's going to land in the thing. Don't tell them where you're going, right? So the defender has control of this setup to simulate the fact that this is where they live, and they can control the engagement to a reasonable degree. Now, you can't actually say, well, we know where you're coming down, this is where we're going to choose to fight you, sort of thing, but this is kind of a way to do that. So the defender has full control of the setup of the map. The forces, the attacker builds their force first. Now, in the actual scenario I've got here, I've written that the attacker is a clan force. You don't have to do that, right? It doesn't matter. This is just the way I was thinking of doing it. You go through the objective list, and we'll get to that in a sec, and you pick what objectives you want to complete, right? You don't have to tell the defender anything about this. They can remain completely secret. You can let them know. You can do whatever you want to do. It depends on what type of clan force you're running. If you're an Innisphere force, you won't say a word. You'll just drop in and try and blow things up, right? So I've made an actual list of objectives which will be below this thing. We'll run through some of them in a sec. But you'll pick them and then customize your force to meet those objectives. Your force has to be built with the formation building in the clan set rulebook, page 21 to 22, or campaign ops rulebook, pages 56 to 68, just in case you need a reference. You can use any units you have available, but you have to stick to the rules regarding formation building. And then, once you've built your formation, a single formation for the attacker, so it'll be a single lance, a single level 2, or a single star, right? Depending on what force you're building for. But if you're a clan, it's a single star. I was allowing novas as well, so I let Adam have a nova if he wanted it, so you could do the same. Once you finish doing that, You give 3 pieces of information to the defender. You tell them the total C-bill cost of the formation, the most recent point in the timeline listed for any units or variants of units that you're using, and the highest level of tech you're using for any unit or variant. So if you have 75 million C-bills worth of mechs and vehicles and infantry and whatever in your force, in your formation, you tell them that. If you have a variant of, say, a mech that's listed as being available for 3050, then you tell them that. And that's the furthest in the timeline they can go is the furthest you've gone, okay? And the highest level of tech. So if you've got stuff that's experimental on one of your units, then they're allowed to use experimental tech as well. And if you only have 1 or 2 that are experimental and you let them be like cross-tech boundaries, then you might end up with some problems. But it's up to you guys. But those are the 3 things that the Defender now has. And they have to create a force to defend their planet against whatever it is you decide you're going to do, right? You have to stick to the C-bill budget, the timeline, and the tech level given by the attacker. It cannot be from any further back in the timeline than 3025. Now, that is because I intended the Defender to be an Inner Sphere player. If you want to, you can all go Star League. That's, like I say, it's not set in stone. This is a thing that you can adjust, and please feel free to. You also have to stick to formation building rules, right? Both forces can use C-bills to improve skills of the units in the formations they have built. See the special rules, the skills section for more information. Now, this is because when you have C-bills, there aren't technically any ways to adjust your gunnery and piloting or gunnery and driving or swarm or whatever abilities specifically, right? In campaign ops, there is a way to roll for availability of green, elite, veteran, whatever, those sort of units. You can roll for availability. So technically you could do it that way, but there isn't a set way of specifically improving skills. So if you're going to do a C-bill based thing, you have to come up with some way to adjust your skills, or everybody just gets average pilots. Okay, that's up to you. I like being able to adjust my skills. I specifically enjoy doing that. So what I've got in the skills section there is a quick table. So anyone in a sphere rolls a d6, anyone clan rolls a d6 on the other side, and you end up with that. So you have to roll 2 dice, 1 for gunnery, 1 for piloting / driving if you're using vehicles. Okay, and you can get a slightly better skill. You will always end up with either the same or slightly better skill, right? Any unit that doesn't have a skill adjustment for it, so you get 1 per formation, and then you can buy extras, okay? So every formation gets a roll for gunnery and a roll for piloting, and then you can spend 500,000 C-bills to get another roll, and that roll can be applied anywhere you want, okay? But they'll almost always be better. Some of them will be the same, but they'll almost always be better. Then deployment, the map gets set up according to the Defender, obviously, and then the Defender can deploy on the map in any way they like, right? If you want to all cluster in the middle, you can all cluster in the middle. If you want to spread out, do whatever, it's fine. You get to choose where you're going. Once you're all placed, the attacker comes in, and this is where the attacker's advantage starts. So you choose locations for your force to perform combat drops. Now, this is a very simplified version of combat drops. Okay, there are specific rules for it. If you want to have a look at them at some point, leave a comment down. I'll go through them if I can figure out where they were. I think it's strategic ops. But the simple version is you pick a position, you make a piloting skill roll. If you pass, you land exactly where you say you're going to land. If you fail, you have a margin of failure, which is the number of points you fail that PSR. So the clan units will have a piloting skill of 4. The lowest you can roll is a 2, which means you can only fail by 2, right? So your margin of failure will be at worst 2. And then you scatter in a random direction a number of hexes equal to your margin of failure. Yeah, okay. If you land in forbidden terrain, you scatter another one, because I don't want anybody exploding on the first turn, alright? That's not cool. I'm trying to keep this a fairly simple version, and technically if you're dropping in, you can explode on the you can just die dropping in, which is silly. If you fail, you make another PSR, and a pass means no damage. A fail takes one time a certain amount of damage to a leg or front location, etc., etc., etc. It's all there, right? So once all damage checks are made and damage applied, all checks are made and damage applied, you roll initiative and you do your first turn, and that's it. Yeah. I'm trying to build these things like so they'll be objectively reasonable, not necessarily good, but like reasonable. You can take it and you can adjust it and work with it. So you guys will have to talk amongst yourselves in the comments about whether or not you think these are reasonable objectives. So I went through all the other stuff before. I'm going to go through the objective list here now. So in case you've forgotten, the objectives are chosen by the attacker. Now, I've seen stuff like this done before, and I've done stuff like this before. I think someone on DFA was doing something similar, where you have 3 objectives and only the attacker knows which one's the real one, or only the defender knows which one's the real one. That's old school. I used to do that all the time, right? So it's just a way of making it more exciting, and this, I think, is kind of cool. The attacker is the one who's attacking. They're the one who's deciding what they want to do. So I've given them a list of possibilities, and you can expand this list out to like hundreds of possibilities if you want to, and have any attacker in any given scenario that you play in your club or whatever pick from this list of scenario objectives and go, okay, so I want to do this one, and this one, and they can keep them to themselves, or they can tell the enemy what they're doing. But I just want to run through a few of these, and like I say, hopefully this will be as a PDF, or it'll be a thing that you can have a look at, or it'll be scrolling up across the screen right now if our editing department is feeling frisky. So you can have a squiz and just, go through them yourself. But I'm going to do a couple that I just want to like randomly go through, and yeah, let you get a gist of what's going on. So this objective list, the attacker picks from, and then they build their force after they've decided what objectives they're going to be trying for. So the obvious one is demolition, right? So now Adam and I hashed this one out. I originally have it as being 3 buildings, but what we've got is mostly multi-hex buildings. We don't really have any 1-hex buildings, and that means that if a building is, say, CF 40, then to bring the building down, which is what I was originally going with, would take like 40 times the number of hexes that you need to kill in order to drop the building, and then you have to start on the next one, right? And that's a long time. I've given a 12-turn limit to this, so, and you'll see why in a minute. I'll go to the defender's objective, but that seemed like it was going to be nasty. So I cut it down after discussing it with Adam. We cut it down to 1 building. So after setup, you pick 1 building, but before you deploy, or before anybody deploys. So each building hex is worth 30 points divided by the number of hexes. So if you've got a 3-hex building, each hex is worth 10 VP. If you've only got a 1-hex building, it's worth 30 VP, right? Fairly simple math. Most of them aren't usually more than 2 or 3 hexes, like 4 hexes at most. That one could get a little bit iffy, but you can always just say, okay, so as soon as you've blown up 3 hexes, the other one comes down and you get your 30 points. Okay? Yeah, so the attacker gets points for each building hex they destroy, and the defender gains points for each building standing at the end of the game. Now, I've been a bit iffy about giving the defender points in these, because I don't want the defender to benefit too much from the attacker's choice. Okay, so I might even still lower those amounts, right? So give the attacker full points and give the defender half points, maybe, or something like that. But yeah, so that's demolition. And if you pick that, you decide whether you tell the defender which building is irrelevant. It's not. It's not something that you have to do. You can keep a secret if you want to, right? But you need to be able to distinguish which building is which, and you need to at least write it down or make a note of which one it is, or I don't know, take a photo with a marker on it or something. Do something that assigns that as your one, okay? Just to be fair to the defender, okay? Another one that involves CF was the targets of opportunity. So the attacker can assign up to 3 off-board targets. Each target has a CF of 50, is located 15 hexes from a random side of the board. So you can say, I'm doing 3 targets of opportunity, and then you have to roll to see what side they're off of. They're worth 10 victory points to the attacker if destroyed, and 10 to the defender if still standing at the end of the game. And again, I might make that 5 to the defender, but it's irrelevant. We've got it at 10, leave it at 10. To attack the targets, units must be at least 4 levels high with an unobstructed view of the map edge, right? Which means you're going to have to get your mechs at least 2 elevations high because they're already 2 levels high. And you have to get your vehicles at least 3 levels high because they're 1 level high, okay? So that could be difficult for vehicles. If you've taken, say, some high-speed VTOLs or something with some long-range weaponry, then cool. You have to calculate your range, including the 15 hexes to the target. Okay, so however far you are from the edge of the board that they're from, you add the 15 hexes to that, and that's your range. And then you have to shoot as normal at an immobile target, a building, 15 hexes away, and you have to do 50 points of damage to drop it. Drop it, it's worth 10 points. Okay? Fairly simple. The delay tactic was one that I could probably go into. So you can combine this with any other objectives, or if you want to take just this one, you can pretend to take others in order to distract the defender. So the attacker gains 10 victory points per turn after the third where the attacker force has not been destroyed or put into force withdrawal. Now, you're talking a clan style, that's going to take... You're going to start building up points. It's going to take a while to either destroy or put into force withdrawal a full clan star. And that's what I mean, where the attacker force, so everybody on that force has to be either destroyed or put into force withdrawal. Okay? And 10 victory points per turn after the third, and I've set a time limit of 12. So you've got, 9 turns? Potential for 80 or 90 points there, depending. Okay, and then you've got, what have we got? Triangulation, which is a type of point capture. Like I said in one of my other videos, the point capture thing can be used for a lot of stuff, right? Point capture is fairly standard objective type stuff. You can do whatever you want with it. That point can accomplish all sorts of things. You can make checks, you can make not, etc. So after the setup, before deployment, the attacker chooses 3 points that can be marked with tokens openly if you want to, or you can choose with coordinates secretly. Now, I assume you know how to do the coordinate thing, but if I can get a map and while I'm talking to Adam about stuff, we might go through putting down coordinates. An attacker unit on one of those points makes a PSR modified by the type of movement, distance move, and actuator gyro damage. So a difficult one, but not undoable. If you pass that PSR on each of the 3 points at any point in the battle, so you don't have to do them all at once, or all together, or anything like that. You just have to stand on one of those points and make the PSR roll. And each one of those you do is okay. It doesn't matter how often how many turns it is between. Doesn't matter. Okay, once you've done all 3, you get 30 victory points. Once you pass that final one, you get 30 victory points, and then the defender gets nothing. Okay, the defender gets nothing because the only one they have here that actively gives them points for doing something is turn the invaders back now. The defender's only job is to get rid of the attacker. Okay, what I'm doing here is I've set a 12 turn limit. The defender gets points depending on how many and how quickly they can get rid of the attacker. So, destroyed, force withdrawal, permanently immobile, or forcibly moved off the map in any direction. Okay? If you can do that in the first or second turn, you get 30 victory points for every unit you do it to. Third and fourth, you get 20. Fifth to seventh, you get 10. 8th to 10th, you get 5. And after the 11th turn, you get 1 victory point per unit. So you want to smash people as quickly as possible. If the attacker sets up on an edge in the first turn, you want to charge them and try and push them off the edge. Okay? You want those 30 victory points to cover the fact that you are probably not going to be able to keep this up. Right? But in that middle section, you're making decent victory points for breaching armor, getting criticals, blowing limbs off, all that sort of stuff. And towards the 6th to, say, 9th turn, even clan forces are starting to get a bit, like, full-on damaged, okay? There's a lot of people getting in closer by then, right? And if you're dropping in, you are potentially right next to people in the first place. But by the 6th to 9th turn, you're looking at people being in very close quarters, and yeah, it's a free-for-all. But yeah, I hope that's the objective list. And I think that covers the majority of the scenario. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. Hopefully you've got the scenario and you can tweak it to your own benefit. But yeah, you guys stay groovy, and I'll catch you in the next one.